Hello, hello. Good evening, everyone. It's nice to be live with you all again. I'm Imani.
I am J. Bernard Maat Kynes.
Yeah, and all of that too. But I just whew, feels so good to be back in the seat. And we have a wonderful show planned this evening, like we always do. And our presenter is one of the two of us, and it's not me. So, the process of elimination. No, Bernard, he did a wonderful, wonderful presentation this past weekend for a couples retreat. And I twisted his arm a little bit and said, it'd be nice for you to do that same presentation for our watching audience. It was just so powerful and had so much in it. So before we get to his wonderful presentation, we are going to start out the way we normally do. And go for it, Bernard.
All right, I'm missing something, but I found them.
Oh, your tinctures.
They're on the other side, excuse me.
Oh, sure. All right, he's getting his tinctures and turning on the fan. I probably have the heat on. I shouldn't tell him that.
I feel it. I feel the heat.
You feel the heat?
Yeah. So, thank you again so much for being with us. As is part of our ritual and tradition, we begin our shows with a brief spiritual meditative moment. I invite you, if you would like to participate, to just close your eyes if you are able, if you're sitting and watching, if you're driving. I guess I don't know if you can drive and be attached to YouTube. So just
you can.
You can.
I do it all the time. You can't watch it. I mean, but you can listen to it. So
in a way, I'd like for you to get centered down, and I'm also doing this so I can get centered for the presentation. And let's take a few breaths together. 3, minimum of 3. 3 is completion. It begins to calm the parasympathetic nerve in the brain. If you notice on the exhalation, it calms you down, and that part of the nervous system in the brain is the one we want to activate all of the time, most of the time. Mm-hmm. So let us begin. Breathe in and breathe out, and begin scanning your body for all sensations without attaching. The striking of the tingshaws clears the energetic space so that the ancestors who are already present can be enjoined with us in spirit and in truth. They give us focus, and they look forward to our continued work in healing. And therefore, we are here to transform our lives, and we pay homage to their presence. I want to read briefly from Thich Nhat Hanh, Your True Home. Writes, go back to the body. Go back to the body. Breathing mindfully takes our minds back to our breath, and if we continue, to our whole body. We go back to our body and reconcile with it. We get to know what's going on in our body, the wrongs we have done, the conflicts we're having, and we'll know what to do and what not to do in order to be on good terms with our body. With mindful breathing, we come to recognize our body as home. We might say, breathing in, I'm aware of my body. Breathing out, I smile to my whole body. go back to our body. It's the only one that we have. Ashe.
Ashe.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Amen.
It was nice.
Thank you.
Back to the body. It's so cool. I know when you do your openings, it helps me to get balanced, because sometimes we're joking around and kind of carrying on before the show, and so that when you do the meditation part, it helps me to get kind of calm, centered, and balanced. Remember in grad school, I used to always go up on the board and write, "I am calm, centered, and balanced," and everybody else would say, "Here we are, we're all a mess, but Imani is calm, centered, and balanced, so I guess we'll follow her lead." And it would make folks laugh, but relax about coming back to their bodies, just being calm and not getting stressed out because we're taking an exam. So a couple of things. We just always encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Progressively Yours Health and Wellness Podcast. We know that that's where the numbers count. So the numbers are growing, but we want to make sure that you are there with us, and click on the little bell so that you get all the notices. And the shows that are coming up, we send out notices, send out newsletters, we send out notices on all of the media platforms, Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. But sometimes people miss those. So if you have subscribed to our YouTube channel, you will always get the notices. And we always make a plug for our red light bed, which is up in Swanee at Precision Health and Wellness Center. We have a wonderful discount for people to try the bed for the first time. The bed is powerful because it does kind of full body healing. It uses red and near infrared light to basically get into the mitochondria, to stimulate the ATP, and to help your body to do what it needs to do naturally for itself. Some people like it for weight loss. Some people like it for their skin. It helps with recovery from workouts, recovery from from illnesses. So we like it, and we're seeing a large.
We love it. Yeah.
We love it. We're seeing a lot more people coming and knocking on our door, asking about the red light bed. And we have packages after the initial visit, so we really do try to keep the price reasonable for people. And you can call on 861-7266 to make an appointment. I understand we're going to be at a large health and wellness festival this weekend. So hope to see some of you out there. I don't have the address on me, but you can always send out notices about where we're going to be this coming weekend. And the other thing that we're really, really excited about, which we mentioned last week, was Alice AI, developed by a phenomenal naturopathic doctor here in Atlanta, who just understands plants and frequencies and has figured out how to get us those frequencies so that we can use them with our phones, with our tablets, and actually address some of the imbalances in our bodies. And lots of testimonials about weight loss and pain and digestion and telomeres and skin and so many things. So we have that little video that we showed. We showed it at one point, and I'd like to show it again. Just a brief video about Alice AI, and certainly after seeing the video, you can call if you'd like to get a demonstration of it. And some people are actually purchasing, getting their own subscription so that you can get it on your own phone. So, I mean, I think at some point, just like the telephone, everyone's going to have this in their homes for their families. So, Toya, could you please play that little spot for us?
This is going to blow your mind. Imagine your phone as your personal doctor. Introducing Alice. Alice stands for Artificial Liaison Intelligent Computing Enumeration System. It's a groundbreaking artificial intelligence that uses plant frequencies to heal the human body. How, you ask? By analyzing all 11 systems within your body, and helps facilitate repairs one system at a time. Imagine having a back injury from a car accident. Alice can help with that. Not only does it address injuries, but it also boosts your immune system. In global catastrophes where resources are thin, Alice preserves energy signatures of supplements and administers them via your smartphone. Just add distilled water. This tech makes healthcare accessible anywhere, anytime. By simply placing your phone over your chest, Alice gets to work. Vitamins and nutrients delivered directly. We've been transmitting supplements globally for 2 years. The future isn't just coming, it's here. Dive into the limitless possibilities with Alice.
So I also just wanted to make a plug. We're working with the creator of this system. We're signing up 100 practitioners to include Alice AI working with their clients. So that's another thing. We only have limited spots, and people are jumping at the opportunity to use this because it is so effective. And we do have some docs and other natural practitioners who are working with us who are having great success. Call 470-861-7266 if you'd like to learn more about Alice or possibly get your own subscription as either a family or a practitioner. We have both options available. And with that, we are going to move on to our presentation. Are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay.
I'm ready.
All right. Well, I have to introduce you, so you don't be ready yet.
Okay.
So normally our guest would be in the background somewhere, and they would not be like right here in your face, but it's okay. You know Bernard. So I'll tell you a little bit about Mr. Bernard. He is an ordained minister, a licensed marriage and family therapist, clinical member, and an approved supervisor with the American Association for Marriage and Family Therapy, and an ACPE psychotherapist and a podcast host. Bernard is a devoted husband, father, grandfather, and the dad of 2 four-leggeds who love to jump in his vehicle. He is sensitive, powerful, resourceful, and an avid reader. Bernard is the real deal and an outstanding member of the Atlanta, Georgia community. For those of you who are blessed to have heard his presentation this past weekend at the couples retreat, now you'll have the opportunity to keep it in your files because you can share, you can save, you can watch it on YouTube whenever you like. So, like I said, some of you have heard it, maybe a handful, and we're happy to have you with us on the podcast. And I am going to turn it all over to Mr. Wonderful.
Thank you, my beloved and beautiful wife, for that wonderful introduction. Thank you for joining us tonight, and I'm looking forward to sharing. The presentation is really about an hour and a half in length, so I'm going to move a little bit quicker through the slides that I want to present to you tonight, information as it relates to our 5 basic needs. The retreat Saturday was just a great opportunity to share with couples who were tending to their relationship. And so with that, we shall begin.
All right. So you want me to?
Yes. So on the relational and spiritual care, attending to our 5 basic human needs. I first want to give thanks to one of my trainers when I was taking the course in PBSB, Dr. Kurt Levan, How We See the World. Part of the content of the slide presentation Dr. Kurt shared with us in class, got his permission to use the information because I thought it was so powerful and so meaningful that I come into contact with every day in my practice. Let's begin with this particular quote. Living with the parents you have. This is taken from the book, The Body Keeps the Score, Brain, Mind, and Body in the Healing of Trauma, Bessel van der Court, MD. Children have a biological instinct to attach. They have no choice. Whether their parents are caregivers, are loving, caring, or distant, insensitive, rejecting, or abusive, children will develop a coping style based on their attempt to get at least some of their needs met. The key element to this part is that children will attach. They have no choice about it. The reason, as before we go to the next slide, that I wanted to begin with this slide and offer this presentation was in my practice, when couples, individual, doesn't matter, come in for a session, they're really not coming to be fixed. They are experiencing some discomfort, be it spiritual, emotional. And in the case of couples, they want to begin right where the problem is in the moment. And so I have to attend to that. We talk about what's going on. What I began to discover over the years, I've been doing this since 1992, is most adults think that the problem began once they got married, or if not at the beginning of the marriage, when they became adults. We rarely think about our childhood, and our childhood has a share in the ways that we are. So, and who we have become. So, what I want you to do is just on a sheet of paper, write down the numbers 1 through 12, ages 1 through 12. And as Carl Jung says, I am not what has happened to me, I am who I chose to become. So, whatever has happened, we have some opportunities in our adult life to choose who we wish to become. Fulfillment of 5 basic developmental needs. We like to see our present as full of possibilities, hope, and meaning. So we want our lives to have this fulfillment, to experience life as having pleasure, satisfaction, meaning, and a connectionness or the fruit of living. The biblical text says the fruits of the spirit, which pretty much means the same thing, is that we don't want our lives to be overwhelmed with melancholy or depression or controlled by anxiety. We want our life to be robust. We want to live exciting lives. But in relationships, from time to time, we run into challenges that push us. We want to learn to be more self reliant in discovering how to meet our own needs. And when most couples come in, they become more dependent on their partner as opposed to develop an interdependent relationship. In an interdependent relationship, I know how to provide for myself without overburdening my partner, even as I want some of my needs met through the relationship. So, self reliance and meeting our own needs. So, what is the first basic need that we all have? And remember, this begins in the beginning from the moment and even prior to our being born. And we have a right to exist in the universe. Ideally, it would be nice to have had parents who planned for us and dreamed about our coming. They developed space and place. They were financially secure. This would be an ideal state of being, not a perfect, but an ideal. So that when we are born, we enter into an environmental space where we know that we are wanted, that we are welcome, as we shall see in a few slides following this one, that the parents have made possible for us to enter the world in a way that is wholesome and healthy. Even before we were born, there was nice and wholesome prenatal care. Our parents read to us while we were in the womb, talked with us, caressed us. That would be the ideal scenario. But if you think about your life, especially in the first 4 years of life, you don't have a conscious memory. And so you will want to know from those who can tell the story, if your parents were alive, or if they're other relatives, what was it like when I was a baby? What was going on in my parents' life when they were pregnant with me? That gives you a sense of how, if you came into the world and where you were wanted, desired, planned for, or not. Place and belonging becomes very important because in our coupled relationship, we are on the hunt, be it unconsciously, for a partner who will help me to feel like I belong. We want a place that's warming. As you take a look at this picture, warming, welcoming, loving, focused gaze, reinforcing the parent child bond and the absolute right to exist. We want to experience unconditional love. The second um, element for getting our needs met is nurturance. We like to feel nurtured. We need to feel nurtured. The care that children needs is to feel that they are here, they will be kept alive, they will be provided with tenderness and the basic care, oral through the feeding, the changing, and the touching of the skin. Uh, the nurturance needs. Individual feels full and satisfied on the inside, and we're back to body because body is very important. Body carries all of the energy that we experience in the environment. So from the very beginning, before we have conscious awareness, we know whether we were held with tenderness or we were cared for. We don't have cognitive recognition of that, but our body remembers everything, everything. It records because it's connecting with the neurotransmitters in the developing brain, and we forget nothing. There's a literal aspect as you see how this father is holding his little one, the newborn, who is totally dependent on being providing life giving nutrition, creating fulfillment and satisfaction, soothing and comfort, knowing that someone is going to change the diaper, bath, caressing, cooing, stroking, holding. All of these elements in our early life development are very, very important. So here's a symbolic aspect of it. When you look at this picture, what do you see? What do you see? You see two caring parents adoring their daughter. They're both smiling, but also, if you notice the face of their daughter, she is mimicking what both parents are doing because they are mirroring for her. So there's a theory called mirroring neurons. That is to say, the brain is taking a snapshot picture of everything around us in our environment from early on. Now, the baby cannot see the parents as we see each other as adults. She sees images, shapes, but she's familiar that these are her parents by their scent. And so the way they touch her, and so she feels the energy and she takes them in. So the psychological message that gets reinforced is that in this picture is that you are worthy to be touched and you are touchable. And we're going to let you know that we admire you, we value you, and we're going to praise you. The third element of getting our needs met is support. When couples come into sessions from time to time, they often say, I need to feel supported. I don't feel supported. And usually that happens in the time of some type of crisis. A crisis has occurred. And we want to feel that the person with whom I'm with supports me. Babies need assistance to lift their bodies, to stand as they develop the muscle strength to walk. Young children need help to reach and climb and run and move about. The arms and shoulders and laps to meet these needs. So support is very, very important. Remember, all of these elements we look for in adulthood, but they don't start in adulthood. They begin when we are children, from infancy, from the moment that we are born. The need for these 5 basic needs are necessary for us to have a balanced life. There's a literal element of support. Need to be held and carried and to move about in the world. In our adult relationship, there's a need for human touch. Feels like caring, but support. I need a hug, and it's okay to ask each other for hugs. Well, that begins early on when you think about how you caress and hold your baby, and how you held when you were a baby. How supported did you feel? Is the psychological support, letting the child know that he or she is not alone. Parents and the caregivers move back with them and to assure them that we are with you all the way, demonstrating care. I am here for you. And you can't say those words enough. We say to our children, I love you a lot, but we need to add other words to assure them that we support them when they're struggling. You know, Sometimes they may require discipline. And when I mean discipline, I mean just sometimes we have to take uh, precious items away. But we also at the same time have to let them know that I stand with you, I support you.
Mhm.
Now we're shifting, and the theme of what we're talking about is centered around relationships. How we form our relationships and how relationships were formed with us early on in life, in our development, is very, very important. Again, the body keeps the score. Bessel says, study after study shows that having a good support network constitutes the single most powerful protection against becoming traumatized. Safety and terror are incomparable. When we are terrified, nothing calms us down like the reassuring voice or the firm embrace of someone we trust. Trust is very, very important. We learn trust early in childhood. Frightened adults respond to the same comforts as terrified children, gentle holding and rocking, and the assurance that somebody bigger and stronger is taking care of things so you can safely go to sleep. In order to recover, mind, body, and brain needs to be convinced that it is safe to let go. That happens only when you feel safe at a visceral level and allow yourself to connect that sense of safety with the memories of past helplessness. Now, this part about past helplessness is very significant once you're adult and you all at some point we've all had some element of trauma. Um, and I remember one of my own experiences when my adopted dad died when I was 11. I was traumatized when I found him that Sunday morning after wanting to sleep with him the night before, but I could not because he was dying of lung cancer, and I didn't understand that at 11. So when I found him in the same position the next morning, uh, it just traumatized the whole household, the whole community. And at, as a little boy, I felt that I was responsible for his death. I couldn't sleep with him to help him to recover. And I held that against myself unconsciously, not knowing it. I was projecting it out on others for a very, very long time. And so safety of the memory comes only as I work through and found a way to forgive myself for being hard on myself about that. The fourth element for getting our needs met is we need, from the beginning, protection. Infants are very soft and vulnerable. The inability to keep themselves safe, they can't do it. So when we're babies, we are totally dependent on the other to take care of us, to protect us, because we're vulnerable. We're vulnerable to the elements around us, and we need someone to ensure that we are safe. We need the warmth when it's cold. We need something strong and firm to protect us against sharp surfaces, for example, and guarding against danger and fighting for safety. Protection is very, very important. How many times as an adult in your intimate relationship, you have said to your partner, thank you for being here. I feel so protected. I was traumatized last night and you were with me, and I felt not only supported but protected. You see, these overlap, they go hand in hand. It's a literal element of protection. The child is startled by some experience, and mother embraces. This is where touch is important, and keeping the child out of harm's way, dangerous animals, extreme weather conditions, poisonous foods and chemicals, which we have to fight so much against today in real time, hostile individuals. So we have to stay on the lookout, trouble, or they're looking for anything that could startle them. And sometimes they cannot articulate when they're startled and need protection. And so we, as parents, right, we needed parents who would look out on our behalf and protect us so that when we move into adulthood, it is familiar. So we're able to offer that one to the other. It's a symbolic expression of protection. This young fella has experienced something that has probably traumatized him. And so you notice his body is up against his caregiver, preventing psychological injury. We can be, when we are traumatized, we're very vulnerable to psychological injuries such as inability to sleep, inability to concentrate. We can't find like words sometimes to express ourselves. So the psychological trauma, we can develop the inability to trust. So protection when we're traumatized or when a child is traumatized is very important. Who protected you in times of possible moments when you were traumatized? The last basic need is known as loving limits. Now, this is tad bit more difficult because the two most powerful energies that run through our body are on two opposite ends of the spectrum. One is anger. Anger is a very powerful emotion. And as a young child, feeling that kind of power can be alarming. It's in the body, and child, the infant who is crying, needing to be touched, may not know what to do with that energy. Rage, violence can develop, and then creating sexuality. I don't necessarily mean intercourse here, but the sexual energies that run through our body. Who teaches us early on about how the hormonal system in male and female it impacts who we are. But those energies can be so powerful that if we don't know what they are and that they're normal, then we step out of bounds. And so teaching about loving limits is a means of helping to develop healthy boundaries around these very powerful emotions and energies. If we don't have that during our developmental years, when we grow into puberty, adolescent, young adulthood, our boundaries can be blurred. It's all because we have a deficit in having our basic needs met. So we need a containment for those. And it's a very good picture here showing how, if you look at the little boy's face, you can see how upset he is about something. However, mom is there to touch, and even though his arms are crossed as if to say, leave me alone, it's the reassurance. She's holding him, and holding him helps him to maintain the energy in his body. I remember once my youngest son was wrestling with me. He went, he went to wrestle with me, and he was getting the best of me. So I had to get a little stronger with him, and I picked him up and put him on the floor pretty hard, and then I put all of my body weight on him, and he could not move. And I was laying there, and he just started screaming, "Got me, got me!" And he was huffing and puffing. And I got up, and he was out of breath, and then we continued to play. But what had happened? What was the lesson in that? By me putting my weight on him, he could feel not only my weight, the frustration of the anger of that I'm on him was a way to teach him that the anger is powerful, but it would not destroy him. And he's pretty cool, calm, and collected young man today. And he has talked about not that experience, but I remember he was in conversation with the police officer one. He said, "Well, somehow I'm able to maintain my composure," and that's because that was one of the contributing factors. So helping to our children early on, that our parents help us to develop boundaries as opposed to shutting us down, as opposed to talking with us when we experience these emotional energies. If they had not had parents who were able to help them, then they passed on what was passed on to them. So chances are we might not have the opportunity to develop these boundaries as we think about loving limits. It's a symbolic picture.
Okay.
Now, what happens when we have a lack of deficiency in getting our basic needs met, or a deficit is on the screen? What happens is we develop these negative voices, and these voices are always kind of have a negative prediction or a sense of doom or justice. You know, I'm gonna find a way to get him back, or I'm gonna find a way to get her back. Um, well, he doesn't really care about me, or she really doesn't care about me. This is the worst case scenario. we're just not going to make it. Now, these are voices. These are types of voices that enter into our head. We don't know where they come from. But if we listen to the voices, then we take on the energy that the voices download into our system. Uh, these voices are created from deficient, deficits in our basic needs, trauma, or holes in the roles. Holes in the roles simply mean sometimes in childhood, we have to take on the role of the parent without even realizing. If you are a firstborn, for instance, you had to, and if you had a large family, you had to assume some responsibility for your siblings. And that may not, and that really was not your responsibility, but it was the order of the day. Many times I've had clients say, "Yeah, my oldest sister was really my mother," uh, but then there's still a longing for a level of relationship with the actual mother that the sister who was filling that role could not sufficiently provide. So, how do we transform the negative voices? Because we've either had a deficit or a deficient uh, element of not getting all of our basic needs met. Well, in our adult life, we want to create affectionate affirmations and spiritual mantras, as I call it. After recognizing negative voices, I say, first breathe in and breathe out through your nose, deep and full, always a minimum of 3. Because once you breathe in and out, by the third breath, actually on the first breath, it begins to calm the parasympathetic nervous system begins to kick in. By the time you do 3, you will experience yourself calming down. And then you just create your own mantras. Some of these are the ones that I do every morning before I begin my day, before I'm out of the house. I may say, I allow myself to accept and receive God's grace and forgiveness. I allow myself to forgive myself. In this moment, I allow myself to embrace my inner light and beauty. Today, I allow myself to be a light in the world as a child of God. Today, I allow myself to offer unconditional compassion to myself as well as to others. Today, I allow myself to breathe in as much acceptance as I can. In this moment, I'll allow the presence of the Creator Spirit to be my guide. And so, when you have negative voices that come in your head, you pause, you breathe, and you create your own mantra that helps you in the moment. So, by way of summing up, um, the 5 basic human needs that are with us from the beginning of our human life to the end of our human journey. In other words, we will always have a need for these basic needs to be met and fulfilled in some way in our life on our journey. Place and belonging. I need to feel that I belong. And I do need from my partner to help me to feel that I belong in the space and place where we are. We need to do that for each other in order for our relationship to blossom and to feel complete. And we begin to read and feel each other's energy. So sometimes I can say, not necessarily you belong, but it's through the actions. Could be a touch, could be a smile, could be a kind word in the moment that the partner knows that this is a place where I'm confident that I belong. Nurturance. We need nurture. We need, we need the nutrition from the food we eat, the water that we drink. We need that emotionally. All these are rooted in emotional energies. So we need to know that if I'm having, if I'm not having such a good day, that I can feel nurtured and as well as protected from the harms of the world, the energies of the world, the projections that the world project onto us. There's so much of that that's happening today uh, that I need an emotional place where I can feel protected and safe, and a place where I can develop loving limits. That is, safe boundaries to hold myself accountable. These are 5 basic needs. They follow us from, as I said, from the moment that we're born. And it is how we experience these basic needs when we were born, is how they play out when we move into our adult life. So we are yearning and searching for mates and partners who and lovers who might help us along the way in these areas of getting our basic needs met. And so I submit that when we are struggling in our relationship, it's because we are looking for ways to get our basic needs met. One of the others, there's also been conversation about the 5 love languages. I think there's 5, or the love languages. Now, I've not read that text. I've heard of it. But
They
these
probably parallel somehow.
They do. I'm sure they do. Yeah.
Yep. Very good. That was good. I know you pulled back from a lot of the stories that you shared. We got time for at least one story. If you got one good story that you want to share.
As a kid, yeah, I do. And I knew that just going and reading through the slides is different than being interactive.
Acting it out.
Yeah, and acting it out.
Getting comments from people in the audience and all of that.
Yeah, but one of the stories, since you asked that question, the first one that came to mind happened when I was 4. And sometimes our basic needs are not always, and they do not always have to be provided to us by a parent.
A parent.
So when I was 4, Mama Kynes, who would later adopt me, she was taking me to the neighborhood daycare facility because she had to work. I grew up in South Georgia. And I didn't want to go. I just remember when we got to the door, she was about to leave me. I just had an anxiety attack. I started crying. I remember grabbing her and holding on to her. Apparently, she was trying to encourage me. She put some coins in my hand. And for whatever reason, it was 3. Miss Van Hine very, very compassionately knelt down to my level. And she recognized that I needed to know that the environment was safe, that I would be cared for. She protected my emotional integrity by placing a hand on me and speaking in a tone that says, "You are going to be okay. Come on in and join and be with the other children." She said, "But before you come in, give those back to her." So I gave Mama one. She said, "Give her the other one." I gave her the other. She said, "Give her the other." I gave her the other. And then she put her arm around me and she said, "Now come on in and play with the children." So to this very day, one of my best friends, James Bradford Hall, was standing in the door with our other friend, Donald, who is now an ancestor. And they welcomed me in. And the rest is history. Now, you say, well, at 4, how do you remember that story with such detail? Because it was a traumatizing moment. And what happens when we have a traumatizing moment, the brain takes a picture of the emotion. And it's because of the emotion that we remember the experience. And so every experience that you remember with such clarity, there was some element of trauma behind it. It didn't have to be terrifying, but it may have started you. The brain remembers that, and so you never forget it, and the body never forgets it. And so it was just a wonderful experience of you belong. I'm here to provide nurture and care for you. I'm going to support you because I'm going to touch you and I'm going to protect your emotion. You're going to be okay. And give the coins back, teaching me limits, boundaries. You know? And so even though that does not, so the anger and the disappointment would be the extreme in that case of loving limits.
I have a story that I don't know why, but it just reminded me of this story. I used to take the train to go to school in Boston, and I was on the train, and it was the elevated train, so you could look out and see down into the city, see the cars and everything. So one day I'm on the train, and there was a little child that was trying to look out the window, so it was trying to stand up. And the mother's yanking it down and, sit down, you better sit down, boy, sit down. And in my mind, I'm like, he just wants to look out the window. Next day, same scenario, child about the same age, same size, is looking out the window. You're looking at the world go by as we're in the train. It's such a big world. And the mother gently put her hand behind the back of the child, like, okay, I'm going to support you as you look out the window. And I'm like, that's how you do it. It was just such a contrast from one day to the next, just seeing how the parenting skills make such a difference. Like you said, even into our adult life, like, you wonder about those two children, like, where are they now? And how are they dealing with the world, given the kind of parenting that they were kind of subjected to. Which is not to say the first person was a bad person,
right.
But it was just a very different style, and not really seeing the eyes through the world of the child and what they needed at that moment.
Yeah, well, parenthood from the beginning of our lives is so stressful, and when you look at the legacy of our history, what our ancestors and family members in particular, have moved through. It was very difficult, if not impossible, to create those basic needs in an idealistic way. It was just too much. It may have succeeded in one area, but then there might be some shortcomings in another area. So this is why in life it takes a lot of support, a lot of nurture, a lot of love, a lot of care, a lot of patience for a long time, as Carl Jung says, to get to understand ourselves and to recognize that we have basic needs that we have to continue to develop and nurture, and that's what we are yearning for in relationships. And I see it every day, and it's very difficult because the brain gets hardwired, and the way we change is we have to change the brain. We have to create new neurons, and neuroscientists have discovered that we are able to develop new neurons in our brain, but we have to change and create new habits, which is why the mantras are nice. That's why doing exercises such as like yoga is very important. Walking, breathing, in and out, swimming. These type of exercises help us to change the neurotransmitter patterns, developments in our brain, and we can offer that to ourselves by giving that back to ourselves as a way of becoming self-reliant upon ourselves and helping to meet our needs.
All right. That was good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Well, that concludes another episode of Progressively Yours Health and Wellness Podcast. And I do look, sometimes I see messages from people like the next day, you know, on LinkedIn or Facebook, sometimes even on YouTube. So you can, if you have comments or questions, you can still put them down. We can interact, because the one thing about this type of podcast is that you don't have the interacting, you know, and people calling in. And so, but we do appreciate your comments. When you do have comments, you do make comments, and it helps us, you know, in terms of kind of feeling the pulse of our audience.
Yeah.
So thank you for being there. We feel you. We appreciate you, and certainly wish all the best to you. You can look us up on meetsankofa.com. You can also look up CEOsankofa.com. Our folks who have created our website and digital cards keep playing with the best way of displaying that. So look up CEOsankofa.com and let us know what you think. We're also trying to help people get their own digital and video business cards. It really makes a difference to be able to just give someone your QR code and not passing out cards. It just makes life a little bit easier, and people throw cards away. So reach out to us if you're interested in getting your own beautiful digital video business card. All right.
All right.
We'll see you next time.